The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with angry voices. Admiral Tejo of the human fleet stood at the center, his dark uniform neat and pressed. Around him, alien beings from across the galaxy sat in floating chairs, their faces showing clear annoyance. "This cannot continue," said Velthar, his blue skin shimmering under the lights. The Valeth was known for his calm nature, but today his voice carried sharp edges. "Human military operations are disturbing." Tejo kept his face calm. "In what way, honored counselor?" "The noise," Velthar replied, his long fingers tapping on his chair's arm. "Your soldiers never stop talking. They shout during battles. They play music. They make jokes while fighting for their lives. It is chaos." Other council members nodded. Kethmore, a reptilian Krex, leaned forward. "We have studied human battle records. Your coordination is primitive. You use voice communication when telepathy or digital links would be more efficient." Prime Nexus, the jellyfish-like Nethrim, floated in his water tank. His mental voice reached everyone in the room. "Human thoughts are loud and scattered. During joint operations, their mental noise disrupts our psychic coordination. Our soldiers cannot focus." Tejo listened to each complaint. For 3 years, humanity had been part of the galactic community. For 3 years, these same complaints had grown louder. He had expected this meeting. "Our methods work for us," Tejo said simply. "Human psychology requires verbal communication. We build trust through shared experience. Music and humor keep our spirits strong during difficult times." Velthar pulled up a hologram showing battle statistics. "Your victory rates are average, at best. 67% success in standard operations. Your formations are predictable. Your strategies follow basic military doctrine from your home world. Yet you win," added another counselor, an insect-like being whose name Tejo could never pronounce. "But at what cost? Your methods are crude. Effective, perhaps, but crude." Kethmore's scaled head tilted. "We have observed human troops singing during artillery bombardments. We have seen your officers tell jokes while planning serious military operations. One of your captains was recorded playing a game called Rock, Paper, Scissors to decide attack formations." The council chamber filled with sounds of agreement. Tejo waited for the voices to quiet. "Honored counselors," he began, "you invited humanity to join this alliance because you needed our help. Our crude methods have saved many lives. We do not question your loyalty," Prime Nexus said, his mental voice softer now. "But your methods concern us. In the upcoming campaign against the Outer Rim pirates, we believe human forces should be limited, perhaps serve only as support troops." Velthar nodded. "It would be better for overall coordination. Your communication methods interfere with our more advanced systems." Tejo felt a familiar weight in his chest. He had known this day would come. The other species had always looked down on humanity. They saw humans as useful but primitive, strong but stupid, loyal but loud. "May I suggest an alternative?" Tejo asked. The council grew quiet. All eyes focused on the human admiral. "Allow humanity to handle the next pirate. Operation alone, no joint forces, no coordination requirements. Judge us by our results." Velthar's eyebrows rose. "Alone? The pirate fleets in the Outer Rim are quite dangerous. They have been a problem for many years." "Then it should be a good test," Tejo replied. The counselors looked at each other, whispered. Conversation started in several languages. Prime Nexus floated closer to his tank's edge. "This could be acceptable," the Nethrim said. "If human forces fail, it would prove our point about the need for proper coordination. If they succeed, but with heavy losses, it would show the cost of crude methods." Kethmore's tongue flicked out. "And if they succeed with minimal losses?" "Then perhaps we have underestimated human capabilities," Velthar admitted. The vote was quick, unanimous. Humanity would handle the next pirate threat alone. The council would observe and judge the results. After the meeting, Captain Boram approached Tejo in the corridor. She was younger than the admiral, but her eyes held the same careful intelligence. "They expect us to fail," she said quietly. "Or succeed badly," Tejo agreed. "Either way, they plan to use this to limit our role in the alliance." Boram nodded. "What are your orders, sir?" Tejo looked around the empty corridor. The walls were covered with symbols representing dozens of species. Humanity's symbol was there too, but smaller than the others. Newer. "Prepare the fleet," he said. Standard loadout, standard cruise. Rules of engagement? Teho was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was very soft. Protocol 7, no witnesses. Boram's face did not change, but something flickered in her eyes. Understood, sir. No witnesses. She walked away without another word. Teho remained in the corridor, looking at humanity's small symbol on the wall. Soon, other species would learn something new about humans, something they had never been allowed to see. The Admiral pulled out his communication device and sent a message to all human fleet commanders. The message was short and used simple words that any human soldier would understand, but hidden in those simple words was an order that would change everything. 3 days later, distress signals came from the mining station Kepler 7. Pirates had attacked. Hostages were taken. The situation was exactly what the Council had been. Waiting for Teho stood on the bridge of his flagship as they received the emergency call. Around him, his crew moved with their usual energy. Voices called out readings. Someone was humming while working on a computer. A junior officer made a joke about the coffee being too strong. To any observer, it looked like a typical human operation. Loud, chaotic, full of unnecessary chatter. But if someone had looked closely at the crew's faces, they might have noticed something different. The jokes were quieter than usual. The humming stopped sooner. The unnecessary chatter was less unnecessary. All ships, Teho announced over the fleet communication system. We are proceeding to Kepler 7. Standard rescue operation. Follow normal protocols until further notice. His words were heard by every human in the fleet. 5,000 soldiers, pilots, and support staff received the message. To anyone listening, it sounded like a routine order. But every human who heard, it understood the real meaning. They had trained for this moment. They had prepared for the day when they would no longer need to pretend. The fleet turned toward Kepler 7. On dozens of ships, human crews continued their normal activities. They talked, joked, played music, and argued about sports. Everything appeared exactly as the Council expected. But deep in the ship's computer systems, new programs began to run. Programs that had been written years ago and never used. Programs that would allow the fleet to operate in ways the Galactic Council had never seen. On the bridge, Boram approached Teho with a datapad. All ships report ready, sir. Observers? The Velith ship Silani is maintaining a safe distance. They will record everything for the Council. Teho nodded. Good. Let them see what they expect to see for now. The fleet continued toward Kepler 7. To the Velith observers, it looked like another noisy human operation heading toward an uncertain outcome. They expected to record either an embarrassing failure or a messy victory that would prove human methods were inferior. They had no idea they were about to witness something that would terrify the entire Galactic Council. The mining station Kepler 7 hung in space like a broken flower. Its lights flickered weakly, and debris floated around it in slow circles. Inside, 3,000 workers were trapped with some of the most dangerous pirates in the galaxy. Silani sat in her observation ship, watching through powerful sensors. As a Velith military observer, she had seen many human operations. They always followed the same pattern. Loud radio chatter, obvious ship movements, and straightforward attacks. Humans were predictable. Her ship stayed far from the battle zone. The Council had ordered her to record everything. They wanted proof that human methods were primitive and costly. Admiral Teho's fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 12 ships in a standard formation. Silani activated her recording systems and prepared to document another messy human victory. But something was wrong. The human ships moved toward Kepler 7 in complete silence. No radio chatter filled the communication channels. No ship's broadcast, identification signals. The entire fleet seemed to glide through space like ghosts. Silani checked her equipment. Everything was working properly. She could detect the human ships clearly. But they were not behaving like humans. This is unusual, she said to her recording system. Human forces are not following their normal communication patterns. Perhaps they are trying a new strategy. The human ships reached the station and spread out in a complex pattern. Silani had studied human tactics for years. She knew their formations by heart. But this formation was something new. The ships moved with perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. But her sensors showed no communication signals between the ships. No digital links. No telepathic connections. The humans were coordinating somehow, but she could not understand how. Lieutenant Commander Dongsu led the first boarding team. Silani tracked his transport ship as it approached the station. She expected to hear the usual human radio chatter, battle cries, status reports, jokes to calm nervous soldiers. Instead, she heard nothing. The transport docked with the station, in perfect silence. Dongsu's team disappeared inside. Silani switched to internal sensors, trying to track the human soldiers through the station's corridors. What she saw made no sense. The human teams moved through Kepler-7 like water flowing, around rocks. They seemed to know exactly where to go without looking at maps. They avoided pirate patrols without using sensors. They found hidden passages without searching. The Vorth pirates were savage fighters. They had terrorized this part of space for decades. They took no prisoners and fought to the death. But as Silani watched, something impossible happened. The pirates began to panic. "Where are they?" a Vorth leader screamed over his radio. "I can hear them, but I cannot see them." "Squad 7 is gone," another pirate reported. "They were here a moment ago. Now there is only silence." "Squad 3, report," the leader demanded. No answer. Silani watched her sensors in growing confusion. The human teams were everywhere and nowhere. They appeared behind pirate positions without warning. They rescued hostages from rooms the pirates thought were secure. They moved through the station like they had built it themselves. But the most disturbing thing was the silence. Human soldiers always talked during operations. They coordinated by voice, shared information, encouraged each other. It was their greatest weakness and their defining characteristic. Now they moved in perfect quiet, communicating in ways Silani could not detect or understand. The pirate leader made a desperate decision. "Kill the hostages, all of them! Maybe that will draw out these demons." His teams rushed to the prisoner-holding areas. But when they arrived, the rooms were empty. 3,000 hostages had vanished without triggering a single alarm. "Impossible," the leader roared. They were locked in. The doors were sealed. On her sensors, Silani could see the hostages. They were being moved through the station's service tunnels in long, quiet lines. Human soldiers guided them with hand signals and touch. No one spoke. No one made unnecessary noise. It was like watching a perfectly choreographed dance. The pirates' panic spread like fire. These were creatures that had never known fear. They had conquered dozens of worlds and destroyed entire fleets. But now they ran through their own ship, shooting at shadows. "They are everywhere," one screamed. "How can they be everywhere?" Dongsu appeared on the pirate bridge like a ghost. One moment the space was empty. The next moment he was there, surrounded by 6 other human soldiers. The pirate leader spun around, raising his weapon. But Dongsu was faster. The fight was over, in seconds. The pirate leader fell without firing a shot. His bridge crew surrendered immediately, their hands shaking with fear. "How?" the leader gasped as Dongsu secured him. "How did you get past our sensors? Our guards? Our locked doors?" Dongsu looked down at him. When he spoke, his voice was calm and quiet. "You made too much noise. 4 hours after the operation began, it was over. All hostages were safe. All pirates were captured or dead. Not a single human soldier had been injured." Silani stared at her sensor readings. The numbers made no sense. In all her years of observing military operations, she had never seen anything like this. The human ships began to leave Kepler-7. As they moved away from the station, something changed. Radio chatter started again. Voices filled the communication channels. Someone was playing music. A crew member made a joke about the mission being too easy. It was as if a switch had been flipped. The silent, ghostly fleet became loud and chaotic again. Normal humans doing normal human things. But Silani had seen what came before the switch. She prepared her report for the Galactic Council. But as she began to write, she realized she did not know what to say. How could she describe what? Had no explanation? How could she report tactics that should not work? Her final report was short. Human forces completed the mission successfully. All hostages rescued. All pirates neutralized. 0 human casualties. Mission duration, 4 hours, 17 minutes. Tactical analysis, unknown. The word unknown bothered her. In all her years as a military observer, she had never used that word. Military tactics could be studied, understood, categorized. But what she had witnessed at Kepler-7 fit no category she knew. The human ships disappeared into hyperspace, their crews chatting happily about their success. To anyone listening, they sounded like soldiers celebrating a job well done. But Silani remembered the silence, the impossible coordination, the way human soldiers had moved like they shared one mind. She remembered the pirate leader's final words. What manner of demons are these humans? For the first time in her career, Silani did not have an answer. When her report reached the Galactic Council, it caused immediate concern, not because of what it said, but because of what it did not say. Military observers were supposed to understand what they saw. They were supposed to explain how victories were won. Silani's report explained nothing. The council called for an emergency session. Something had happened at Kepler-7, something that challenged everything they thought they knew about human military capabilities, and that was very frightening indeed. Kethmore could not sleep. The Krex scientist sat in his laboratory surrounded by data screens and reports. For weeks, he had been studying what happened at Kepler-7. The more he learned, the less he understood. The numbers were impossible. No military force could move that fast, coordinate that perfectly, or achieve such results without taking casualties. Yet the humans had done exactly that. Kethmore had requested all available records on human military operations. The data filled several computers. Over 3 years, humans had participated in hundreds of joint operations with other species. Every single operation followed the same pattern. Humans were loud. They talked constantly. They used basic tactics and simple formations. They won battles through determination and teamwork, not through superior strategy or technology. But at Kepler-7, they had been something else entirely. The Krex scientist decided to investigate directly. He traveled to the joint military base, at Station Omega, where human and alien forces trained together. If answers existed, he would find them there. Private Sujin was working on a transport ship when Kethmore found her. She was young, maybe 25 in human years, with short, black hair and friendly eyes. When she saw the alien scientist approaching, she smiled and waved. "Hello there. You're the Krex scientist, right? I've heard about your research. How can I help you?" Kethmore was surprised by her friendliness. Most soldiers were suspicious of scientists asking questions, but Sujin seemed genuinely happy to talk. "I am studying human military culture," Kethmore explained. "Your methods are interesting," Sujin laughed. "Interesting is a nice way to put it. Most aliens think we're crazy. All that talking and singing during battles. But it works for us, you know? Why do you communicate so much during operations?" "Oh, that's easy," Sujin said, sitting down on a toolbox. "Humans are social creatures. We need to talk to each other. It builds trust, keeps morale high, helps us coordinate. Plus, it's just fun. Why be miserable during a fight when you can crack jokes instead?" Kethmore took notes on his datapad. This matched everything he had observed before. Humans used verbal communication because they enjoyed it, not because they needed it. "Your tactics are quite straightforward," he said. "Sure, keep it simple, right? Complex plans fall apart when people start shooting at you. Better to have a basic plan that everyone understands than a brilliant plan that confuses your own troops." Sujin talked for over an hour. She explained human training methods, leadership styles, and combat philosophy. Everything she said matched Kethmore's previous research. Humans were exactly what they appeared to be. Social, emotional, straightforward fighters who relied on teamwork and determination. But as their conversation continued, Kethmore began to ask about specific operations. "The mission at Tau Station last month went very well," he said. "Oh yes. We worked with the Nethrim fleet. Great coordination. Everyone did their part." "And the supply convoy escort 2 weeks ago?" "Another success. The Valeth provided excellent sensor coverage." Kethmore pulled up his datapad and scrolled to a specific entry. "What about Kepler-7? Sujin's expression changed, not dramatically, but enough for Kethmore to notice. Her smile remained, but something shifted behind her eyes. "We don't talk about silent operations," she said simply. "Excuse me?" "Silent operations. We don't talk about them." Sujin stood up and returned to her work on the transport. "Is there anything else I can help you with? I need to finish this repair job." Kethmore stared at her. "What do you mean you don't talk about them?" "Exactly that," Sujin replied, not looking up from her work. "We don't talk about silent operations." She continued working as if nothing had happened. When Kethmore tried to ask more questions about Kepler-7, Sujin simply repeated the same phrase. "We don't talk about silent operations." But she was happy to discuss any other topic. Her friendly manner returned immediately when he asked about other missions, human culture, or her personal experiences. It was as if Kepler-7 had never happened. Over the next several days, Kethmore interviewed 47 human soldiers, officers, and support staff. They ranged in age from 19 to 55. They came from different planets, different backgrounds, different specialties. Every single one gave him the same response when he asked about silent operations. We don't talk about silent operations. Not evasively, not defensively, not angrily. They said it the same way they might say the sky is blue or water is wet. It was a simple statement of fact, but they would discuss anything else. Human soldiers were normally very talkative. They loved to share stories about their experiences, complain about their officers, and argue about tactics. They would talk for hours about battles, training exercises, and military life in general. Only silent operations were off limits. Kethmore began digging deeper into military records. He found something disturbing. In 3 years of joint operations, humans had participated in 847 recorded missions. In all but 23 of those missions, they had followed their typical loud, chaotic patterns. But in those 23 missions, something was different. The official records showed successful operations with minimal casualties and completed objectives. But the recordings were corrupted. Sensor logs were incomplete. Observer reports were filled with gaps and unexplained events. It was as if those 23 operations had been deliberately hidden from outside observation. Kethmore cross-referenced the dates with supply records, medical reports, and personnel files. A pattern emerged. Before each silent operation, human forces had requested specific equipment, advanced sensors, specialized communication gear, and weapons that were never used in normal missions. After each silent operation, human medical facilities reported 0 combat casualties but increased requests for stress counseling and sleep aids. The most disturbing discovery came when Kethmore analyzed the tactical outcomes. Those 23 silent operations had achieved impossible results. Complex objectives, completed ahead of schedule. Enemy forces neutralized with surgical precision. Hostage rescues with 0 civilian casualties. The success rate for silent operations was 100%. No military force in galactic history had ever achieved a 100% success rate. Not the Valeth with their advanced technology. Not the Nethrim with their psychic coordination. Not even the legendary Drek Empire at the height of their power. But humans had done it. 23 times. Kethmore presented his findings to the Galactic Council. He stood before the assembled leaders with datapads full of evidence and questions without answers. The humans are not what they appear to be, he concluded. Their normal behavior is deliberate. They have capabilities we have never seen and methods we cannot understand. Felthar shook his head. This is impossible. Human psychology profiles show they are incapable of such deception. They are too social, too emotional, too honest. Yet the evidence is clear. Kethmore replied. They have been limiting themselves. In joint operations, we have never seen their true capabilities. Prime Nexus floated closer to the edge of his tank. When we scan human minds during normal operations, we see exactly what we expect. Scattered thoughts, emotional responses, simple tactical thinking. But during these silent operations, yes? Velthar prompted. During silent operations, their minds become opaque. We cannot read their thoughts, predict their actions, or understand their coordination methods. It is as if they become an entirely different species. The council chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. For 3 years, they had been making diplomatic and military decisions based on incomplete information. They had assumed humans were primitive allies who could be managed and directed, but the humans had been watching, learning, and hiding their true nature. We must confront them directly, Kethmore said. We need answers. The council agreed. Admiral Tejo was summoned to appear before them. It was time to learn what humanity was really capable of, and whether the Galactic Council should be afraid of the answer. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any in recent memory. Security was increased. Only the most senior representatives were allowed to attend. The topic was classified at the highest level. Humanity was now considered a potential threat. Admiral Tejo entered the chamber flanked by Captain Boram and Major Hyunwoo. All 3 humans walked with their usual relaxed manner, chatting quietly about the weather on the council station. They seemed completely unaware of the tension in the room. Thank you for coming, Admiral. Velthar began, his voice carefully controlled. We have some questions about recent human military operations. Tejo smiled and nodded. Of course, we're always happy to discuss our methods with our allies. How can we help? Kethmore activated a holographic display showing the data he had collected. We have been analyzing human performance over the past 3 years. There are some irregularities. Irregularities? Boram asked, looking genuinely confused. 23 missions where human forces achieved impossible results, Kethmore explained. 0 casualties, perfect coordination, and tactical outcomes that should not be possible. Major Hyunwoo tilted his head. I'm not sure I understand. The problem. Aren't good results what we want? The problem, Prime Nexus said, his mental voice carrying an edge of frustration, is that we cannot explain how you achieved these results. Our psychic scans during these operations show nothing. Your minds become blank. Taeho exchanged a quick glance with his officers. It was the first sign of any reaction beyond polite confusion. I'm not sure what you mean by blank, the Admiral said slowly. Velthar leaned forward. We know about your silent operations. We know that human forces have capabilities you have been hiding from the Council. Silent operations? Boram repeated. We don't talk about silent operations. The phrase sent a chill through the chamber. It was exactly what Kethmore's interviews had revealed. The same words, spoken in the same matter-of-fact tone. That response, Kethmore said, is exactly what concerns us. Every human gives the same answer. It suggests coordination beyond normal military discipline. Taeho was quiet for a moment, studying the assembled council members. When he spoke, his friendly manner remained, but something had changed in his eyes. We are a social species, he said. We communicate constantly because we enjoy it. We work together because we care about each other. Our methods may seem primitive to you, but they work for us. Your methods at Kepler-7 were not primitive, Velthar countered. They were impossibly advanced. Special circumstances required special protocols, Boram said simply. The results speak for themselves. What protocols? Prime Nexus demanded. What methods did you use? How did you coordinate without any detectable communication? The 3 humans looked at each other. For the first time since entering the chamber, their friendly expressions showed cracks. Some operational details are classified, Major Hyunwoo said. Classified from your allies? Kethmore asked. Classified from everyone, Taeho replied. The admission hung in the air like a weapon. The council members stared at the humans with growing alarm. Here was proof that humanity had been hiding military secrets from their supposed partners. Velthar stood up from his floating chair. We demand to observe a human silent operation. We need to understand what you are capable of. The 3 humans exchanged another look. This time their friendly masks slipped entirely. For just a moment the council saw something else in their eyes. Something calculating and alien. Some things, Major Hyunwoo said quietly, are better left unobserved. The threat was subtle, but unmistakable. The humans were politely refusing to reveal their capabilities, and they were warning the Council not to push the issue. Prime Nexus floated to the front of his tank. You have been deceiving us. For 3 years you have presented yourselves as primitive but loyal allies. But you have been hiding advanced military capabilities that surpass our own. We have never deceived anyone, Taeho said. We are exactly what we appear to be. Social-emotional beings who believe in working together. We talk constantly because we enjoy communication. We use simple tactics because they work. Then explain Kepler-7, Kethmore demanded. We use different tactics, Boram said. The situation required it. What tactics? Classified tactics. The circular conversation was maddening. The humans acknowledged that they had special capabilities but refused to explain what those capabilities were or how they worked. Velthar activated his own data display. We have analyzed your supply requests, personnel movements, and equipment usage. Before each silent operation, you request specialized gear that you never use in normal missions. After each operation, you increase requests for psychological counseling. Military operations can be stressful, Hyunwoo said. Your success rate for silent operations is 100%, Velthar continued. No military force in galactic history has achieved that level of success. We're very good at what we do, Taeho replied. What do you do? Kethmore shouted, his patience finally breaking. What are these methods? What technology do you use? How do you coordinate without communication? The 3 humans were quiet for a long moment. When Taeho spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. We understand your concerns, but some questions cannot be answered safely. Safely for whom? Prime Nexus asked. For everyone. The council chamber erupted in angry voices. Representatives demanded answers, made accusations, and threatened sanctions. The humans listened quietly to the chaos, their faces showing no emotion. When the shouting died down, Velthar made a formal declaration. The Galactic Council cannot allow unknown military capabilities to exist within our alliance. We demand full disclosure of human methods, or humanity's membership will be reviewed. Teho nodded calmly. We understand your position. We hope you will understand ours when the time comes. What does that mean? Kethmore asked. But the humans were already standing to leave. They walked out of the chamber with the same relaxed manner they had entered with, chatting quietly about their lunch plans. After they left, the council sat in stunned silence. They are not afraid of us, Velthar said finally. They should be, Prime Nexus replied. We have fleets, technology, resources. Humanity is just one species among many. But they know something we don't, Kethmore added. Something that makes them confident enough to refuse our demands. The council faced an impossible situation. They could not force humanity to reveal their secrets without risking war, but they could not ignore the possibility that their newest allies were far more dangerous than they appeared. 3 days later, their dilemma was resolved in the worst possible way. Long-range sensors detected a massive fleet entering Council space. The ships belonged to the Drek Empire, a military power that had conquered half the galaxy before being stopped at the Council's borders. The Drek had not been seen for decades, but now they were back in force. Their target was the Tau sector, one of the Council's most important industrial regions. 3 Council fleets moved to intercept them, but the Drek had grown stronger during their absence. The Council forces were destroyed in a matter of hours. Desperate messages reached the Council chambers. The Drek were advancing toward the sector's main worlds. Millions of civilians were in danger. Every available military asset was needed immediately. Admiral Teho responded within minutes. Humanity's largest fleet was already moving toward the battle zone. But as the human ships approached the combat area, something familiar happened. Radio. Silence fell over the human fleet. The Council observers watched their sensors with growing dread. They were about to see humanity's true capabilities demonstrated against the most dangerous military force in the galaxy. And they were terrified of what they might discover. The Drek Empire had been the nightmare of the galaxy for thousands of years. Their black ships moved like predators through space, destroying everything in their path. They had conquered hundreds of worlds before the Galactic Council had finally stopped them at tremendous cost. Now they were back, stronger than ever. Admiral Garrick commanded the Drek invasion fleet from his massive battleship. He had studied the Council's recent military reports. These new humans were supposed to be primitive fighters who relied on noise and chaos. They would be easy prey. Signal the human fleet, Garrick ordered. Offer them the chance to surrender. I am curious to hear how these loud creatures beg for their lives. But when his communication officer tried to contact the human ships, he found only silence. Sir, the humans are not responding to our signals. Are their communication systems damaged? No, sir. They are simply not answering. Garrick looked at his tactical display. The human fleet had arranged itself in a formation he did not recognize. 47 ships moving in perfect coordination without any detectable communication between them. How are they coordinating their movements? Unknown, sir. Our sensors detect no signals, no data streams, no telepathic activity. But they move as if controlled by a single mind. For the first time in his long military career, Garrick felt a touch of unease. On his observation ship, Velthar watched the same displays with growing dread. The human fleet approached the Drek forces in complete silence. No radio chatter, no coordination signals, no battle cries. The humans had activated their unknown protocols. This is Commander Velthar to Admiral Teho, he broadcast. Please, respond. We need to coordinate our remaining forces. Silence. Admiral Teho, please acknowledge. Nothing. The human ships continued their advance, moving like dancers in perfect synchronization. Velthar had seen many military formations, but this was something beyond his understanding. Each ship seemed to know exactly where it needed to be without being told. The Drek fleet opened fire first. Massive energy beams crossed space, targeting the lead human vessels. In every previous battle, this barrage would have scattered the enemy formation and caused chaos. Instead, the human ships flowed around the weapons fire like water around stones. They moved with impossible precision, each vessel following a path that took it safely between the deadly beams. Impossible, Garrick muttered. How do they know where our weapons will fire before we fire them? His tactical officer checked his instruments. Sir, they are not using any precognitive technology we can detect. They appear to be predicting our actions. The human fleet reached effective firing range and released their own weapons. But these were not the crude projectiles the Drek expected. Instead, streams of energy lanced out with surgical precision, targeting specific systems on the Drek ships. Within minutes, half the Drek fleet had lost their primary weapons, not destroyed, disabled. The humans were somehow hitting exactly the right components to cripple their enemies without causing unnecessary damage. They know our ship designs better than we do, the tactical officer reported in amazement. Garak ordered his ships to change formation and attack from multiple angles. It was a classic Drek tactic that had won 1,000 battles. His commanders executed the maneuver perfectly, but the human ships were already moving to counter it before the Drek formation began to change. Sir, they anticipated our formation change. How is that possible? I don't know, sir. They moved into position 3 minutes before we began our maneuver. On the ground, Colonel Minsu led human troops against Drek infantry that had landed on the planet below. The Drek were legendary warriors trained from birth for combat. They had never retreated from any battle. But as Minsu's soldiers advanced through the city streets, something unprecedented happened. The Drek began to fall back. Where are they? A Drek squad leader demanded over his radio. I can hear their footsteps, but I cannot see them. Squad 4, report your position. Silence. Squad 7, what is your status? No response. The human soldiers moved through the urban landscape like ghosts. They appeared in places they should not be able to reach, knew about ambushes before walking into them, and coordinated their movements without speaking a word. Minsu led his team through a narrow alley where Drek soldiers waited in perfect cover. But instead of walking into the trap, the humans climbed the buildings on either side and attacked from above. They had known about the ambush without using any sensors or reconnaissance. How did they know we were here? A captured Drek warrior asked. Minsu looked down at him. You were making too much noise. In space, Admiral Garak faced a decision no Drek commander had ever been forced to make. His fleet was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that fought like they could read his thoughts. All ships full retreat, he ordered. Sir? His tactical officer asked in shock. You heard me. Full retreat, now. But as the Drek ships turned to flee, they found human vessels already waiting for them along their escape routes. The humans had predicted the retreat and positioned themselves perfectly to intercept it. Garak stared at his tactical display in disbelief. They knew we would retreat before we decided to retreat. The battle was over in 6 hours. The entire Drek invasion fleet was captured or destroyed. Not a single human ship was lost. Ground forces reported complete victory with minimal casualties. It was the most one-sided military defeat in galactic history. On his observation ship, Velthar sat in stunned silence. His sensors had recorded everything, but he did not understand what he had seen. The humans had fought like they possessed knowledge of the future, coordination beyond physics, and tactical abilities that should not exist. But the most disturbing part came after the battle ended. As soon as the last Drek ship surrendered, radio chatter returned to the human fleet. Voices filled the communication channels. Someone started playing music. A crew member made a joke about the battle being easier than expected. It was as if a switch had been flipped. The silent, ghostly fleet became loud and chaotic again. Normal humans doing normal human things. Velthar tried to contact Admiral Tejo. This time, the human commander answered immediately. Commander, Velthar, good to hear from you. Thanks for observing the operation. I hope the data will be useful for the Council. Admiral, Velthar said slowly, how did you achieve such perfect coordination? Teamwork, Tejo replied cheerfully. Humans work well together when we need to. But your ships moved without any communication signals. We don't always need to talk to understand each other. The answer explained nothing. It was friendly, polite, and completely useless. The Drek are legendary warriors, Velthar continued. They have never been defeated so completely. Well, Tejo said, I guess today was their unlucky day. After the communication ended, Velthar prepared his report for the Council. But like Silani before him, he struggled to explain what he had witnessed. The humans had defeated the most dangerous military force in the galaxy with tactics that should not work, coordination that should not be possible, and knowledge they should not possess. And when asked to explain their methods, they simply smiled and changed the subject. Galactic Council was about to learn that some questions were more frightening than any possible answer. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was held in complete secrecy. No recordings, no observers, no staff members. Only the highest-ranking representatives from each species were allowed to attend. The topic was simple. What to do about humanity. The Drek Empire has withdrawn from this sector entirely, Velthar announced to the assembled council. They sent a formal message stating they will not engage human forces again under any circumstances. The chamber was quiet. Everyone understood the implications. The Drek had never retreated from anyone. In 10,000 years of conquest, they had never acknowledged a superior enemy, until now. Admiral Garrick's final report was disturbing, Kethmore added. He activated a holographic display showing excerpts from the Drek commander's debriefing. He claims human forces demonstrated precognitive abilities, perfect tactical coordination, and knowledge of Drek military doctrine that should not exist. Prime Nexus floated at the edge of his tank. Our psychic specialists analyzed the battle recordings. During the engagement, human minds became completely opaque. We could detect no thoughts, no emotions, no individual consciousness. It was as if they had temporarily ceased to exist as separate beings. That is impossible, declared Counselor Rex, a crystalline being whose species had mastered quantum physics. Individual consciousness cannot simply disappear. It violates the basic laws of reality. Yet our instruments recorded exactly that, Prime Nexus replied. Velthar stood up from his chair. Gentlemen, we must face the truth. Humanity is not what we believe them to be. Their loud, chaotic behavior is a mask. Underneath, they possess military capabilities that surpass our understanding. But what are they? Asked another counselor. What species could hide such abilities so completely? Before anyone could answer, the chamber doors opened. Admiral Taeho entered, followed by Captain Bo-Ram and Major Hyunwoo. They had requested permission to address the council directly. The three humans walked to the center of the chamber, chatting, quietly, about the view from the council station's observation deck. They seemed completely relaxed despite the tension in the room. Thank you for allowing us to speak. Taeho began with a friendly smile. We understand you have concerns about recent military operations. Concerns? Velthar said sharply. We have questions about what you are. Bo-Ram tilted her head. What we are, we're humans. We've never claimed to be anything else. Kethmore activated his data displays. Your battle against the Drek violated numerous principles of military science. Your coordination should not be possible. Your tactical knowledge should not exist. We prepare thoroughly for our missions, Hyunwoo said simply. How do you coordinate without communication? Prime Nexus demanded. You assume coordination requires communication, Bo-Ram replied. You assume unity requires links. You assume precision requires technology. These assumptions limit you. The words sent a chill through the chamber. For the first time, the humans were acknowledging that they operated on different principles than the rest of the galaxy. Then how do you operate? Velthar asked. Taeho considered the question carefully. Have you ever watched a flock of birds change direction instantly? All moving as one without any visible signal? That is instinct, Rex said. Evolutionary programming. Is it? Taeho asked. Or is it something deeper? Something that doesn't require technology or telepathy or complex communication systems? The council members looked at each other uncomfortably. They had studied human behavior for 3 years, but these questions suggested layers of understanding they had never considered. We learned long ago, Major Hyunwoo said quietly, that silence in battle frightens our allies more than our enemies. So we make noise. We create chaos. We appear limited. It makes others comfortable. The admission struck the chamber like a physical blow. The humans had been deliberately limiting themselves to avoid frightening their allies. But the Drek were not your allies, Kethmore pointed out. No, Bo-Ram agreed. They were a threat to people we care about. Different situations require different responses. What situations require your silent protocols? Velthar asked carefully. The three humans exchanged glances. When Taeho spoke, his voice was very soft. When talking stops working, Prime Nexus floated closer to his tank's edge. What are humans, really? What is your species capable of? Bo-Ram smiled, the same friendly expression she had always worn. We're exactly what we appear to be. Social, emotional, cooperative beings who believe in working together. We talk constantly because we enjoy communication. We use simple tactics because they usually work. But, Velthar prompted, but we are also capable of becoming something else when necessary. The silence isn't who we are. It's just another tool we use to protect what we care about. The explanation was both honest and completely unsatisfying. The humans acknowledged their hidden capabilities while refusing to explain how those capabilities worked. Kethmore tried a different approach. Your success rate for silent operations is 100%. How is that possible? We're very good at what we do, Teho said. What do you do? Whatever is necessary. The circular conversation was maddening, but the council was beginning to understand something important. The humans were not going to reveal their methods, not to allies, not to enemies, not to anyone. Why hide your true capabilities? Riex asked. Why pretend to be primitive? Hyunwoo's expression became serious for the first time in the conversation. Because the galaxy is not ready for what we can become. Ready for what? For the silence. The words hung in the air like a threat and a promise. The council finally understood why they had feared the moment humans went silent in battle. It wasn't about tactical advantage or superior weapons. It was about confronting the reality that humanity operated on principles the rest of the galaxy could not understand or predict. Are we safe? Prime Nexus asked quietly. From us? Boram seemed genuinely surprised by the question. Of course, we're your allies. We care about peace, cooperation, and protecting innocent people. But you could destroy us if you chose to. We could destroy anyone if we chose to, Teho said matter-of-factly. But we choose not to. That's what makes us human. The council members sat in stunned silence. The humans had just confirmed their worst fears and greatest hopes in the same breath. Yes, humanity was terrifyingly powerful. But no, they had no intention of using that power against their allies. As the meeting ended, Velthar asked one final question. Will we ever understand how you do what you do? Teho paused at the chamber doors. Understanding requires being ready to accept new ways of thinking. When you're ready, the answers will be there. The three humans left the chamber, chatting happily about their dinner plans and upcoming leave rotations. They seemed completely normal, friendly, social, emotionally open beings who happened to possess capabilities beyond galactic understanding. After they were gone, the council sat in contemplative quiet. They had learned that the most terrifying thing about humanity wasn't their capacity for violence. It was their capacity to become incomprehensible when necessary, while remaining fundamentally, recognizably human. 3 days later, a message arrived from the Drek Empire. It was a formal military assessment filed by Admiral Garrick and approved by the Drek High Command. Recommendation: avoid engagement with human forces under all circumstances. Classification: unknown dangerous. Analysis: they are not what they appear to be, but what they appear to be is not an act. Both statements are somehow true. Additional note: human capabilities appear to scale with necessity. Threat level: incalculable. The council filed the message in their highest security archives. They also sent new diplomatic instructions to all member species. Humanity was to be treated as a full partner in all galactic affairs. Their requests were to be given highest priority. Their friendship was to be maintained at all costs. Because the council had learned something that would keep them awake at night for years to come. Humanity had been protecting the galaxy not just from external threats, but from themselves. And that protection depended entirely on human goodwill. The moment humans stopped being humanity's friends was the moment everyone else would discover what it meant when humans went truly silent.